So Louise here says the WB saga is far from over. A lot of fight will go on over this telenovela, paralyzing the industry. Paramount won't allow Netflix to get away with WB so quickly, launching a hostile takeover evaluated at $108 billion to leave Zaslav no other choice other than selling the mountain. However, there is a lot of stuff you still have to do, even when a lot of money is presented on the table. I appreciate Louise's reporting, but it's a lot more nuanced than that. So let's take a look at what's going on so far. So Netflix agreed to buy Warner Brothers Discovery studio and streaming assets, not HBO, none of the TV networks, just the studio and streaming assets. And a transaction reported at around $82.7 billion enterprise value. So that's not cash, it's enterprise value, which is very important here compared to what we're doing with Warner Brothers. Paramount launched a hostile all-cash takeover for all of Warner Brothers Discovery, not just assets and streaming, the whole shebang. This is HBO Max, everything, right? Pricing the bid at $30 per share and valuing the company at roughly $108 billion. And there we go. That is the number that I said was probably going to come up sooner than later. I was kind of shocked that we didn't see it originally with Netflix, but here we have the $108 billion. It says this is a high-stakes fight between bidders, political scrutiny, union pushback, and antitrust questions. So Paramount, they launched this all-out cash tender bid directly to Warner Brothers, $30 a share. So this is being paired as like superior value and a lengthy multinational regulatory fight because it is all cash. However, what they did not say or haven't talked about publicly is they don't actually have the cash. Paramount doesn't have it. What they're doing is they're getting a bunch of loans directly from people like Citibank, a bunch of other financial organizations, dark money from investment funds that have it's not one person, they're used for political activism. Even Saudi Arabia is pitching money in to get to this $30 a share bid here, right? And what makes it hostile is they did not officially approach Paramount to negotiate. This has been a public offer directly addressed to the shareholders. That's what a hostile takeover is. They're not doing this through the right way. They're doing it over top of that. The reason why they're doing this is because since it is all cash and it comes from actual people giving them money, they're not going to go directly to them and challenge them, paper to paper. Because the Netflix deal is still a much more reliable deal because it's enterprise value. It's not cash on the table. Now, Paramount did say they emphasize that this would be good for them, good for Warner Brothers, because they're going to release 30 theatrical films a year. That's what they say. Operational pledges to soothe, like pledges to not fire people, essentially, to soothe the theatrical concerns. They also say that Middle Eastern backers will forego governance rights to reduce national security objections. That's pretty crazy. Why would a foreign government want to be involved with the purchase of an entertainment studio? Why would they want to do that? Why would this foreign government that's been buddy-buddy with Trump all of a sudden want to do that?
It's like the reverse of the tariffs conversation at the start of the year.
Yeah. So what I'm saying to you guys is Netflix isn't the best option. However, Netflix would not turn the company into a propaganda company.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's not a good position here at all.
No,
there's no winning.
There's no winning, okay?
No.
Netflix has stood behind its agreement, issued the acquisition announcement, and they have not publicly walked away. The company is positioned as committed to closing the deal through the planned separation and regulatory process. Again, remember David Zaslav was promised he would keep his position whether they separated pieces or not? He's not affected by this one way or the other. And his money is locked in. He's going to get paid what he's going to get paid no matter which way the deal goes.
Yeah.
However, he would be working directly for Paramount if it's an all-out buy. Whereas in this situation, if they're buying assets and certain things, he doesn't have to oversee it, but he still gets the money for overseeing it because he would still be on at Discovery, still getting ancillary money, contractual money through the buyout with Netflix.
That still wouldn't affect him either way.
No, no, it would affect him in one way. If Paramount buys out the whole company, he would work directly for Paramount.
Well,
he would have to work for them.
Right, but he would still be getting a guaranteed pay.
Yes, but he would get the guaranteed pay even if he wasn't working directly for Netflix.
Right.
So it's actually a better deal for him if he took the Netflix deal because he wouldn't have to do as much. It says that Warner Brothers Discovery's board acknowledged Paramount's offer but reaffirmed its support for the Netflix transaction. The board says the Netflix deal is in the company's and shareholders' best interests despite the competing tender. And what they mean by that is the Netflix deal is all based on possible monies that are locked into like firms and deals and things like that. With Paramount, it is a bunch of money that they don't know where it's coming from. They have no idea where it's coming from. So they don't know what that would look like from the perspective of who's pulling the shots, who's telling us what to do, who is our actual boss if we sell to Paramount.
Yeah, the uncertainty of that would probably dissuade them from doing it.
Now, Trump publicly warned the Netflix Warner deals could be a problem because of the market share and competitive concerns, saying he'd be involved in the federal review. Why the fuck is the president involved in the FTC's federal review of objective regulations? Why the fuck would the president be involved in that? I mean, I can answer the question. It is rhetorical, but I can answer because he wants to turn it into his company. He wants to be able to pull the strings on it and do all the things he wants to do. Typically, presidents don't get involved in this stuff. The FTC exists to regulate this based on actual guidelines. You don't need someone else chiming in to have anything to do with this unless you've got some ulterior motive to be there. Trump has no reason to be involved in these talks at all.
It's really sad how desperate David Ellison is. Like, it is really, really sad. I don't think there's anybody more desperate than him currently.
What's so funny, I think, is like Netflix now has the opportunity, after the week they've had of negativity over this deal, they do now have the opportunity to look like fucking heroes, right? If like they do get the deal and they close it and they come out and being like, no, we're actually going to keep all of our movies in theaters for all 45 days or whatever, they're now the heroes. Now they are not the studio that ruined the movie industry. They've saved it. They have saved Warner Brothers and this, and like they have, like, if they are smart, if their PR system is smart, they will turn this to their advantage. They will use this entire opportunity. I don't know. I do think it is ultimately, though, like one of those, like, you're not winning with this. Like, there isn't necessarily a good. I mean, buyouts are never good. I see so many people online being like acting like it's a game show. Like, it's who's going to get it? It's like, yeah, thousands of people are losing their jobs either way. Like, it's never a good thing.
This is the first good year they've had in a minute. So I've said this once, I've said it a dozen times. They should not have sold.
Well, but Jake, you have to remember their good year is also a lot of like smoke and mirrors, like selling things off for tax cuts, dropping things off the schedule to make money off the rebates and things like that. Canceling shows so they don't have to pay healthcare for people. The reason why they're so profitable is because they've also been very shady in doing that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of that. What I'm just talking about is when you look at just what their products have been grossing, it's been a good year for them when they haven't had that in a minute.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you on that one. I'm just saying that I think from the shareholders' perspective, they care more about every dollar that's being accounted for, which would be everything that they've done to try and like save money.
That's pretty
so.
clear.
What are we watching out for? There is a silver lining to this. I don't think that Paramount is going to win, but let me explain to you why. But we have to get through this first. So what could Warner Brothers do to prevent Paramount from having a hostile takeover and souring the deal? Well, they could do something like a poison pill situation, right? Where they change the value of the stocks, give a discount on the stock buyouts for shareholders so that it lowers the value of those stocks, meaning that they get a deal if they if they push this through because of Netflix, but not if it's Paramount. They could do something like that. This could escalate. We could see the bids go up. Netflix could offer more money if they wanted, and Netflix could, because it's just all about their valuation. It's not about actual cash, so they could raise the money up if they want. We have regulatory stuff we have to deal with. We don't know what that's going to look like. The union still has to chime in on this. They could strike over this whole situation, and then we have the Trump White House stuff that could spiral into something pretty awful for them. So here we go. Let me see. I've got the list here. Okay. So here's what I have found to be the most likely outcome based on all the stuff I've done this afternoon looking it up. So Warner Brothers board is probably going to stall this a little bit. We're not going to see any movement in this for a while. We're going to see the numbers go up. They're not going to say yes or no to anybody at the moment. Regulators will then stall, possibly because they don't want Netflix to win. So that's going to take some time. They're going to keep doing that. Then the financing gets shaky for Paramount. Because the longer this goes on, the less likely their money donors are going to continue to give them that money. Because they want to give them that money now to get this done. Once things get a little sketchy and people start stalling, the people providing money are going to get nervous. So what happens is Paramount's offer either collapses or it changes into a friendlier deal. Less money done without any cash on hand, right? So Paramount's all-out cash looks strong on paper until interest rates hits, foreign money scrutiny comes into play, political blowback. All of that's going to come out because that's why they're going to stall. And again, that financing isn't just sitting around waiting. It dies if confidence dies. Now, the reason why this is most likely, from what I could find, is we've got 4 other incidents to look at. Comcast trying to take over Disney in 2004, died under pressure. The Sinclair Tribune 2018 was choked out by regulations. The AT&T Time Warner 2016 to 2018, it dragged on, and it eventually died because it was dragged on for 2 years. Viacom CBS merger, there was like years of boardroom drama, restructuring chaos, and the same thing happened. They did not go with the higher deal. So no matter what happens, shareholders are going to win, but everybody else loses, like Darren was saying. Jobs are going to get slashed. Theatrical releases are going to get cut, regardless of what Paramount says. Streaming is going to get more expensive because there's going to be less competition, which is the only thing really keeping them down right now, is the fact that there's other services with a better price point. Creative control is going to shift to some major company. News and information. I saw somebody in the chat talking about this. News portions, newsrooms for these particular companies are extremely fragile. Extremely fragile. Because what happens is if people are buying into this, they're not just buying into it because they want to see Superman, they want to see Henry Cavill back as Superman. They're buying into it because they want control over the narrative, and that's going to happen through the news outlets. That's where you're going to see it happen the most. So right now, it looks like, from what I can find, the Netflix deal lives longer because of the way it's structured. They have credibility with the regulators. It's either going to get regulated, shrunk down, or delayed to hell. However, it doesn't seem likely that Paramount is going to win this, based on everything I found. Does anybody have any counters for that, or are you just going to go with the research that I did? Do you think Paramount's going to win? I mean, anybody can give their opinion, but I've done a lot of digging today, and I didn't see any case where this happened where the other company won outright. It seems like most of the time it falls through.
I really... imagine. Please don't. I don't want to jinx it. Either way, it's gonna be just dread for the next few months, and yeah, it must be hell right now working in the street because you don't know what's gonna happen, especially if you're under the gun behind these 2 pillars. Yeah, I'm not sure. I really don't know, and I'm not gonna say more because I don't want to jinx stuff.
Does anybody else have any opinions about this? Would you prefer Paramount to win or anything like that? Any thoughts on it, Joe?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm rooting for Netflix now. I'm a big theater enthusiast, and you know, it's kind of funny. I actually said the other day, looking at social media, everyone except one group of people. Everyone except one group of people is against this Netflix deal. cinema lovers, theater people who love the theater experience, they're upset because it's bad for theaters. People who collect physical media are upset because Warner Brothers isn't going to be putting out Blu-rays if Netflix is in charge. Everything's going to go right to Netflix, so they're upset. All the MAGA people are upset because Netflix is too woke. The only people I see that are happy are the Snyder Bros, and they're going to be pissed as soon as they find out that Netflix is not bringing him back. So soon it will be everybody. But it's a nightmare scenario with like what we're hearing about, like the CNN changing to be more friendly to Trump. Like, I mean, it's a nightmare scenario.
They already got somebody in there that like speaks for that side of it. And it's just like I heard someone say, and I think probably someone in the comments said as well, that like that Netflix is the lesser evil of the two. And it's just like,
and also the truth is Netflix can change because the current CEO, Ted Sarandos, he wants shorter windows, things like that. But is he going to be CEO forever?
No.
I mean, if they have to exist, they have to respect existing contracts. And if movies are making money in theaters for Warner Brothers, and he's like, shorten those windows, and the board's looking at this and going, why? We're making money.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I think if he would like change on the drop of a dime and be like, oh yeah, all these directors and people are afraid of us destroying the theater experience. Guess what?
Yeah.
We're gonna push for it, even though we see the details from their perspective that we're losing money. But we're not. We're gonna go for it, and we're gonna prove that we do believe in the theater experience. And if they come back out and they're like, oh yeah, we kept the theaters going, not just on the theaters we own, but on every other mom and pop theater, AMC, the big theatrical runs. I'll tell you this upcoming CinemaCon should be interesting. And I told y'all, the one of my most anticipated movies of next year is the Cliff Booth movie. From the get-go, when they started filming, they kept saying that one is the biggest push they're going to have for more extended time in theaters. We'll see if they keep their word, and we'll see if that was just BS or just smoke in the mirrors, because that's the only way I could see them, like, me believing them is that they actually commit to, like, no, don't just rely on people's phones and TVs at home. Stick with the theater experience, and we will show up. I just told you guys, I own both Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Kill Bill. I happily paid money to go see in the big screen.
You're saying they would say something that ends up being a BS statement? I'm shocked.
Here's an idea that I think, and I'm not a business guy, so maybe this is actually a terrible idea. I don't know how this would work for money-wise. But do a new tier. Netflix, make a new money tier. They love their money. They love their thing. Have a new tier that is just called, like, moviegoer or whatever. And if you are subscribed to this tier, you can go into the theater and watch that movie for free because you're paying that monthly fee for them. So if you have to do this, where it's like, oh, if you're paying the $30 extra a month for Netflix or whatever, you can go see Superman for free. You don't have to pay for your ticket or something like that. Like, I think that could kind of work. Like, I think you're right, Ronan. Like, and to kind of combine what I was saying earlier to you. Like, they can be the heroes. Like, if they are like, this is how we've been doing it for years, but we're changing because we're now not just Netflix. We're not just Netflix anymore. There's an entire new ecosystem. And, like, you can still do this shit with your Stranger Things and your Wednesdays and your shit like that. But I do think when it comes to, like, your Batman Part 2 and your Dune 3, I think they have to realize, well, we can't treat that as we would, like, Knives Out. Like you have to treat these things differently. And I hope they realize that, and I hope they're like, physical media. Start opening up, like, Netflix stores that allows you to go buy these physical medias in these stores or these sections of stores. I want to be able to buy my 5-season box set of Stranger Things on DVD. Like, I think you need to start doing some of that stuff, and I think if you do, the reception of Netflix will change. Like, you do not want to be known as the guy who killed cinema. You don't want that to be you.
I will commit right now to Titsaranos and anybody watching Netflix. If you start opening up these, like, Netflix gift shops where they sell physical media and promoting it across the board the way Hot Topic or Funko has been doing, I will happily apply to work there and will spend money at said store to buy my physical media. I will happily do so.
The only bad thing I think to Darren's point that I could see coming out of that is I'm sure there are a number of people out there. So on the one hand, I can see what you're getting at because it would keep quote unquote movie theater prices consistent for those people in that tier. Like it would be the same thing every month, regardless of whatever they're seeing. But also, you would have people, and like this would very clearly happen. You would have people that would like BS their way through a subscription just to get into a free screening, and unfortunately, that's a problem I feel like you'd run into.
Or they could put it so that you have to either be like a new subscriber or somebody that's had it for a long time. They could make it. They could do that. I mean, there had to be a way to regulate it, but it would be tough, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I want to point out that the 30 theatrical releases a year is a little excessive, I think.
A little bit.
Because they would be competing with themselves like every other week.
Yeah.
So I love that that Paramount's like, oh yeah, we're going to put out 30 movies, but that's not going to be good for film because you're going to be oversaturating the market. You need these movies need like 2 to 3 weeks of breathing room, but and you're going to be pairing them up against each other. Because think about this: 30 Warner Brothers movies and how many Paramount movies? Like you're going to be stepping on your own toes at that point.
I figured it was 30 in like total, but it's 30. That's just
that was just in the deal for the bid for Warner Brothers. What they said.
Then that's too much. Because like I was thinking that was like Paramount and Netflix together, or Paramount and Warner Brothers together.
That's still tight though. Even if it's 30, that's still tight. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't give like 30 weeks is like what 58% of the release window of the year. So you're talking about like less than 2 weeks each movie has to breathe before another movie comes in to cover it up.
Hey, I got to get going.
Okay.
But I will say this before I go. The way things are going at Paramount right now, I am very concerned for my beloved Star Trek franchise. I think, I hate Chris Gore. But he just announced he's doing the funeral for a franchise for Star Trek, like he did with Star Wars. I think this might be the right one time where he's on the money, but not for the reasons he thinks he is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, have a good night, Joe. We'll chat with you later.
All right.
Yeah, I saw the chat there. I was going to give him a moment. Also, I want to say that it's really sad to see that the political space that we're in has become so overbearing that we cannot even just have like TV and media without having to deal with this.
Right. Like I wish that stuff would just be like kept separate from entertainment.
I want to point out, and Darren, I know you want to say something, but I want to point out quickly that when they were saying that wokeness and all that was taking over movies and TV shows, it wasn't anything like this. There was no massive billionaire buyout of studios to turn them woke or to push woke messaging or any of that. They just complained about movies that Disney made. You know what I mean? Oh, every Disney movie is this, that, and the other. That we never saw anything like this. We literally have a company with Paramount looking to foreign investors to come up with dark money to buy out a legacy studio. There's nothing like this, directly like this, that we've ever seen when it comes to political messaging. So it is different. I just want to point that out. So, Darren, what were you going to say?
No, I just I don't really know, to be honest. Like I feel like it used to be this big thing where it's like, oh, like we can talk about politics and still be friends, or like, we can agree to disagree. But I think just like too much has changed. I think it's too involved. I think there's too much like morality on the line when it comes to politics now. And again, like we talked about this like about a year ago at this point, Eric. But like we said, I said at the beginning of the year, it's going to be very hard to talk about our favorite movies and TV shows and not get a little political. And it got so much worse than I possibly could have imagined. I thought like oh, Homelander's a little bit like a blank person, a little bit like this, and we'll have to reference it. This is like, oh no, like to talk about the entertainment industry, we literally have to talk about the White House.
Yeah.
And that is a line I really wish we didn't dive into.
I want to remind everyone that I said this earlier. I didn't have to talk about Trump at all during the first term when it comes to entertainment because it wasn't like this. This is a different level of like intrusion into our personal lives. Our federal government should not be this involved with our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Should not be. It is unhealthy.
They don't give a shit about any one person's day-to-day life.
So I hate that I have to do it, but now everybody was like, oh, Eric, why did you start a second channel to talk about this culture stuff when you could have just kept doing what you were doing and ignoring it? I guess it looks a little stupid now, considering I saw the writing on the wall like 3 years ago when I started the Debunks channel.
And it's like, listen, people, why are we always gotta talk about this? Like, people don't realize this. It has never been this ridiculous, embarrassing, and dangerous outside of nuclear threat in the 60s and the 80s and all that stuff. Like, again, there's been a lot of normalization of stuff that should be simple, unethical stuff, simple stuff to label as disrespectful, unpatriotic. And as a kid, I had my issues about patriotism because, people forget the scars of the past and all this stuff. And like, again, I'm not trying to make it about me, but like, I have to look over my shoulders every day because I don't know what's gonna happen. I told the boys, I'm like, if you don't hear from me, like, don't be surprised if it's so and so if this happens. And I hope one day things get better, so I don't have to worry too much about that. I stopped taking my pulse on stuff because sadly history tends to repeat itself in different manners. I hope one day I don't have to worry too much about this stuff. But in my 20s and 30s and possibly in my 40s, I'm gonna we're effed. We are effed. I always joke, people, talk about the X-Men. The X-Men are so woke. I'm like, the day the X-Men are no longer relevant, I think even the X-Men creators and contributors to be like, okay, we finally learned our lesson. The people behind Andor, they weren't really aiming to like speak about what's happening in the times. It's just that they look at history and they're like, okay, well, when people tend to do this, and this, and say this, and this tends to happen. And in some avenues like this, it helps us deal with it. I've told you guys how much Andor helped me deal with a lot of stuff, how much X-Men 97 helped me deal with a lot of stuff. It's just I don't have to tell everybody about it all the time, but like, if we don't talk about it, A, we'll go mad, and B, we're planting our heads in the sand. Now, I'm not telling everybody here and everybody who's watching that we have to talk about it day and night, but we can't ignore it. It's getting ridiculous every day, and it's getting dangerous every day.
The reason why people called those IPs and other ones in a similar vein, the reason why they called them woke or dismissed them, said, oh, this is just propaganda and agenda. I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. You guys can harp on me for this statement however you want. The reason why they called those products like Andor and X-Men 97 woke and all the other labels that you can think of is because those shows had conversations that people weren't ready to have.
No, I agree with that.
When I hear people complaining about Star Wars and how much it's never been like this before, I always love to have. I should have shared, have it saved, the linked up. But there's literally an interview not too long ago between George Lucas and James Cameron. And James Cameron literally flats out asked him, it's a very, the rebels are, we'd be labeled as terrorists and the Empire as the authoritarianism. Like, were you thinking about Vietnam? And George Lucas flat says, yes. He says, yes. I was thinking about Vietnam. He said, I don't know if he said in the interview, but at one point they shot a scene for A New Hope where he says, I'm not waiting for the Empire to draft me in. And it's just like, this was in 1977. You're telling me this is not, it's been there. It's just that the lightsabers and whoosh and the music covered too much for a lot of people. And I love it, but it didn't cover me up. Even as a kid, the prequels, I'm like, okay, I know who he's throwing a jab at.
And that was one of the best things about Andor is like you actually got to see, like like the spectacle was still in the world, but you got to see how it affected the everyday person and the stuff that they had to deal with.
One of the most beautiful and sad things I heard from when Andor was coming out, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there's an episode where someone gives a speech in a big room. And I'll never forget it, somebody said that, like, I wish people in politics behaved like this person more. It would make me have more faith in the times we're at right now. And I'm just like, coño.
Yeah.
I remember you go back to like 2020, 2021. I said every time I was live, I would tell this to Paige, do not bring up politics, right? I didn't want to talk about politics. And the thing is, I knew a little bit about politics, but over the last 2 or 3 years, I've done a lot more research and I've started becoming more aware of everything, especially like local politics, local elections and things like that. I've become more aware of it because I feel like we've lived in an era where there's so much ignorance around this stuff. And I can't educate people on it because I don't, I'm not in a position to do that, but I'm looking things up myself. I'm trying to be aware of these things myself. And I think everybody should do it. If you don't want to dive into federal politics, please, on a local level, look into your local politicians and offices and things like that. It's really, really important. That's the only thing that's going to prevent the federal government from, like, controlling your lives.
Because